Hello, I'm Ruth Godfrey from the University of Leicester Botanic Garden, and this video is to help you learn more about plants. On this video, you'll learn and understand more about what plants need for life and growth and how this can be different from plant to plant. You will describe what the different parts of a flowering plant do and learn more about the life cycle of flowering plants. And there's several science words that you'll learn more about. Photosynthesis, which is how plants use the energy from sunlight to make food. Germination, which is when a seed starts to grow. Pollination, when pollen is moved from one flower to another. And seed dispersal, when the seed is being moved away from the parent plant. From Key Stage 1, you will know the names of the different parts of a flowering plant. This video will help you understand much more about what each of the parts of the plant do. From Key Stage 1, you will also remember what plants need to grow. We'll now be looking at this in more detail and learning about how some plants have adapted to cope with living in difficult places. I will start by looking at the different parts of the plant and explaining how these help. Roots are usually underground, but sometimes parts of them come above the ground. They keep the plant in the ground and enable the plant to take water and nutrients from the soil through the root hairs. Nutrients, if you remember, the goodness from the soil that the plants need to grow, such as iron and nitrogen. The picture on the right of the tree just shows how far the roots grow underground away from the plant. Maybe next time you're outside and see a tree, try to imagine how far the roots might be growing underground. Stems help the plant stand upright so the plant can get as much light as possible. Stems also have very thin tubes inside that take the water up from the roots to the leaves. Here is an experiment you can do to see this working. You'll need some celery with leaves on, some containers and some water and food colouring. Ask an adult to cut across the bottom of the celery and then half fill the containers you've got with water, and in each one add a drop of different food colouring. Put the celery in and then leave in a safe place for 24 hours. You will notice that after 24 hours the colour has gone up the plant, so the water has gone up as well as the food colouring. You'll also notice that blue and red food colouring works very well. Remember, stems in trees are called trunks, and they are covered in bark which protects the thin tubes inside. Look at how bark can be different on these trees that can be found in British woodland: beech, cherry, pine, oak and silver birch. Leaves are the food factory of the plant. Remember, plants need air, water and light to grow, and the leaves use all of these to make their food. Air is made of several gases, and the gas plants need from the air is carbon dioxide. Very tiny parts of the leaves, called chloroplasts, use the energy from the sunlight to put carbon dioxide and water together. Then this is taken apart in a different way to make glucose, which is sugar, and oxygen. The oxygen is then released into the air. The diagram with the monkey shows that plants release oxygen, which is what animal and people need to breathe in. So plants are very important indeed because they release the oxygen we need to breathe in and use the carbon dioxide we breathe out. This means our air has enough oxygen for us and doesn't have too much carbon dioxide. The process of putting water and carbon dioxide together and using the energy from the sun to make sugar and oxygen is called photosynthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means putting together. So using light to put together water and carbon dioxide to make sugar and oxygen. All the other parts of plants you learnt from Key Stage 1 are to do with the making of seeds so new plants can grow. Flowers, buds, which are flowers before they open, seeds and fruits. However, do remember that not all plants have flowers or make seeds. They are only one of the plant groups. There are others. For example, conifer trees such as pine or fir produce cones, not flowers, and ferns and mosses release spores instead of seeds. On this video, we are just looking in detail at flowering plants. If you look at the diagram of the flowering plant life cycle and find the seeds, and then follow the arrow around. Germinate means when a seed starts to grow and a shoot pokes up out of the ground and the roots grow down. See the picture of the bean seed that has germinated in the corner of the screen. Follow the arrow on the diagram again. The plant then grows and the flowers form. First these will be buds, then the flowers will open out. The next word on the diagram is pollination, then seed formation. Let us look at these last two stages in more detail. Flowers contain pollen, and this needs to get to another flower so a seed can form. The diagram of the inside of a flower shows yellow pollen on the male anthers. This needs to get to the female stigma of another flower. The pollen will then grow down the style and join with the ovary, which is what makes a seed. Plants have a problem as they can't walk about to get pollen from other flowers, so they need to use something that can move to take the pollen for them. Many plants make sweet nectar that's inside the flower to encourage the bees to come and collect this as food for their baby bees. When they stand on the flower and reach their long tongues in to get the nectar, the pollen gets stuck on them. Can you see in the picture? This then rubs off when they go to another flower, and success! The pollen has reached another flower. Other insects, including butterflies, also help take pollen from one flower to another. So do hummingbirds and some bats. Some plants use the wind to blow the pollen from one flower to another. Once the flower has been pollinated, the petals die and inside the seeds grow. In the field of dandelions, you can see the yellow flowers, then the dead yellow flowers. Then where I've put a yellow circle, you can see the white of the seeds forming. There are also white heads of dandelion seeds. On the picture of the courgette, you can see the dead flower. The seeds are inside the courgette. The other picture of a plant shows a tomato flower and a small tomato. This will in time ripen to a red tomato. Remember, plants need space to grow so they can get enough light to make their food. Therefore, it is important that seeds don't just fall underneath the parent plant. Especially if this plant is very big, like a tree, it will be impossible for the new plant to get enough light to grow. So again, the plant needs to use something that moves, but this time it is to help carry the seeds away. This is called seed dispersal. Some seeds are dispersed by animals. Squirrels collect nuts, which are also seeds. They hide them so they have enough food during the winter. However, sometimes they forget where they put them and then these seeds can grow. Birds eat fruits which contain seeds. Then they can fly a long way before the seed comes out in their poo. The poo provides a good compost with nutrients to help the seeds grow. Also, people can eat fruits such as apples and then drop the cores with seeds in, which can then grow. The picture of the dog shows burdock seeds which have stuck to its coat and then carried away to drop and perhaps grow elsewhere. Other ways seeds are dispersed are using moving water of rivers and sea like the coconut. Or, like the Himalayan balsam in the picture, have a seed pod that when touched explodes and sends the seeds away. Or the seeds are round, like the picture of the conkers, and they drop and roll away from the parent plant. There are many different seeds that use the wind. Some like dandelions that have little parachutes, others like sycamore have wings, and some like the poppy have shakers that shake out the seeds when it's windy. Please don't get confused. Plants have two different times in their life cycle when they need to help move things. Pollination is when pollen is moved from one flower to another. Seed dispersal is when the seeds are moved away from the parent plant. So back to what our seeds need to continue to grow after they've germinated. Water, the sun for light and warmth, carbon dioxide from the air, and nutrients from the soil. But what about plants that live in places where they don't have all of these? For example, in a desert there is very little rain, so very little water. Cacti can live in the desert because they have spikes instead of flat leaves, so they don't dehydrate. That is, lose too much water like you can on a hot day if you don't drink enough. The spikes can also help to protect them from being eaten by animals. But what about photosynthesis? If they only have spikes for leaves, they won't trap much light. Cacti have adapted, so photosynthesis, that is, remember, making food from water and carbon dioxide, this happens in their stem, not their leaves. These stems also store water when it does rain for the plant to use when it's dry. But what about somewhere where there is very little light? The forest floor in rainforests are very dark. Plants in the light can get 50 times more light than those on the forest floor. So some plants grow very big leaves. See the one in the picture with an adult looking over the top. Some plants grow very tall to get the light. The trunks on the ground can be very big indeed. Other plants don't grow from the ground, and they grow on other tall plants like the red flower bromeliad or the lianas hanging from tall trees. Then there is the problem of the cold, and in particular frost that can freeze the water in the leaves and kill the plant. Plants in Britain have had to adapt to cope with our cold winters. Some plants are deciduous, that is, lose their leaves in winter and don't grow again until the spring. Other plants are evergreen. They don't lose their leaves but have special thick leaves to protect them in frost and needle shape so that any heavy snow falls off and doesn't break the leaves and branches off. Other plants have a food store that then keeps the plant through the winter, and then it has the energy to grow again in spring when conditions are right. Other plants, annuals, these are called, only live for 1 year, and only the seeds live over the winter to then grow into new plants. Some plants live where the soil is poor and there aren't enough nutrients, so they trap insects and digest them to get these nutrients. Watch this Venus flytrap catch 2 flies. Sundews are sticky and insects are trapped on them and the leaves slowly roll up and then they digest the animal. Pitcher plants have long tubes with red lines on to look like meat. This attracts flies who enter looking for a meal and then slip down the hairs inside the pitcher plant and they can't get out. The fly then becomes a meal for the pitcher plant. Now you know much more about plants. I hope one day you can come to the University of Leicester Botanic Garden and see many of the plants shown in this video growing.